Hi, this is Astro Girish here, and thank you for tuning into my channel. So, first of all, let me thank the audience for some of the valuable feedbacks that you have shared. The only request is the feedback that you shared with me happened to be on my Facebook Messenger. I would request you to leave those feedbacks and some valuable comments on the YouTube channel. So it will be more encouraging for me to come out with better videos with the feedback, right? So as I'm continuing with the series on retrograde planet, I've already done some videos and the same has been put in the description box below. I would request the audience to go through it. So I'm going to talk more about retrograde planets now. I've already covered, I think, the retrograde planet on Jupiter, Mars and Venus. Now I would become taking up the transit effect or the retrograde effect of Saturn in the natal chart. Okay. Before going further, I would once again request the audience to kindly subscribe the video and click on the like button on this video. There are a lot of feedbacks that I receive where people appreciated the content that I have posted in the past, but it would be helpful for me if you could show the same interest on the video on the YouTube channel rather than merely sending me comments. So, let's talk about the retrograde planet, and today I would be talking about the retrograde planet effect on Saturn in the natal chart. Most of you have been hearing me in the past, and I have also mentioned this. See, Saturn is a most detrimental planet in astrology. When I say the most detrimental planet, he is a planet who creates a lot of problems. Please do not take it in a negative connotation, because a lot of people complain to me by saying that, oh sir, you always accuse Saturn, whereas other astrologers do say that Saturn is the best planet. Saturn is the best planet without doubt. Okay, but please understand, Saturn is a judge. His job is to record your karma and to adjudicate based on the karmas that you have accumulated. Therefore, Saturn is not always good. Sometimes he can turn worst in your natal chart, not even bad. He can turn worst. And one such position in the natal chart, or one such effect which can have in your natal chart, is a retrograde Saturn. Please understand, if Saturn is covering most of commanding most of the planets in the natal chart, that means there's a karma which is pending. When I say commanding most of the planets, either he's aspecting most of the planets, or he's conjoined with most of the planets, or he's holding them through nakshatras, or or in worst cases even retrograde. So if you have these positions or these placements in the natal chart, please understand Saturn is going to create problems. Okay. Further, Saturn is also known to create ailments. Most of the ailments will have an angle of Saturn, especially where there is pain involved. Too much of pain, slow progress, or slow degeneration, like cases like such as cancer, or cases of lung dysfunction. Even cases such as your liver cirrhosis. All these areas, Saturn will have a role. Add to that, if Saturn is retrograde, he will be even more dangerous or detrimental to deal with. Saturn also signifies mass people. So what happens if you have a retrograde planet or a retrograde Saturn in your natal chart? You will have problems with your subordinates. You will have problems with people who work for you. They may turn disobedient. Sometimes they may also they may say yes to you now, but later they may do something. So there will be an indifference in the way you work. You want them to work for you, and the way they would work for you. So these irritations do happen, but most of the time when Saturn is retrograde. Saturn also deals with difficulties, difficult circumstances, and there again, if Saturn is retrograde, he adds on to the difficulty. So I am highlighting some of the characteristics of Saturn, and also the extreme position what Saturn takes when he is retrograde in the planet. Mind you, this should not be taken on a standalone basis. This has to be read with other planetary positions. However, for those who like to understand more about Saturn, these are some of the characteristics that I'm highlighting about, right? I've also seen Saturn, who's not a very encouraging planet. Sometimes Saturn creates a slowdown in your life. Okay. Add to that, if Saturn is retrograde, he will never give the desired results. Okay. I normally put it like this. When a Saturn in the natal chart can lead to delays. Okay. But a retrograde Saturn can always lead to denials. So please understand, the position of Saturn is very important in a natal chart. Never go with the exaltation debilitation theory on any of the planets. Okay, most astrologers talk about exaltation debilitation. In my experience, I have never seen exaltation and debilitation playing a role. There could be exceptions, very few exceptions, where again you have to study the chart in detail. However, if you're not studying the chart in detail, even if you have a superficial look on the positions of planet, look at the position of retrograde planet of most of the planets that you have in the chart, especially Saturn. Because Saturn turns retrograde for almost 5 to 6 months, almost 5 months, not even 6 months. 4 to 5 months is the time when he turns retrograde. So he can be retrimental, right? So the position of Saturn is very important. Add to that is a retrograde position, right? Again, if a retrograde Saturn is aspecting any other planet or is conjoined with any other planet, he can create problems. He can impact the positives or the negatives of the planet with whom he is associated with. Okay, so a retrograde planet means there is a curse. Okay, this is not a permanent curse. This curse will last as long as you exhaust that past karma that you have brought to this life. Okay, there are ways through which you can come out of it. I'll do a separate video on the remedies. But however, please understand, a retrograde Saturn is really problematic in the natal chart. Now, as it is, I always connect planetary position with the bhavas or with the houses. That means, how does each of these planets connects with the 12 houses and what could be the impact, right? So we will also talk about the same in this case. Okay, so here let us talk about how Saturn will impact if he is connected with the ascendant or the first house. Mind you, when I say Saturn, it means retrograde Saturn. The entire video is about retrograde. I find it a little uncomfortable to say retrograde Saturn, retrograde Jupiter. So please pardon me for that. However, the moment I say the moment I take the name of any of these planets in this video or in the series of video that I'm going to make, please take it up. This is a retrograde position. Okay, so let's see what is the position of Saturn. Again, a retrograde Saturn with the ascendant, right? Now, ascendant is yourself, right? It's your body, it's your mind, it's your conduct, it's your behavior. A retrograde Saturn is going to be really troublesome when it gets connected with the ascendant. He also creates problems with regard to health. Okay, health is one area where you have problems, especially the planet is retrograde. Okay, recently, just few days back, I had a consultation where a young girl, maybe in her mid-20s, she was 25 or 26, she had retrograde Saturn getting connected with the ascendant. And this girl was hesitant to have confidence on me, to ask me, sir, this is a problem that I'm facing, can you help me out? Instead, she posed a question, sir, just look at my kundali and aap batao what is the problem that I have, So the moment I had the kundali in my hand, I was just viewing it, and the first thing that I saw was Saturn getting connected in the ascendant and also retrograde. Of course, he had aspects and connections with other planets too. And the first question that I asked the person is, are you a patient of autism or have you suffered from autism? This girl was surprised, She said, sir, nobody till date has been bang on to tell me this. You see, so she asked me, how come you were so specific? Fortunately, this girl could understand a bit about astrology, though she had other problems too. But I could explain her technically, see, this is the reason, and Saturn is retrograde getting connected with the ascendant and he is connecting with other planets. Immediately this girl said, sir, you're so good in reading the chart, can you give me more readings? Okay, and of course, I went in depth about most of the life aspects, and almost to 80 to 85% I came correct. I won't say I was 100% right, most of us cannot be. Okay, but I could easily predict to 80 to 85% of the life events. So what I'm trying to say is, whenever retrograde Saturn gets connected with the ascendant, you can have the problems with regard to autism. Lack of confidence is definite. Okay, if you have a retrograde planet getting connected with the ascendant, definitely there will be a lack of confidence. Okay, because you will be impulsive, you will not know how to behave. You will be hysteric most of the time, excessive fear, all these things happens because of Saturn, because Saturn himself is a karaka for fear. So if he is getting connected with the ascendant, he has to create this problem. Okay, in some cases I've seen people having a very weird behavior, weird personality. I don't want to be too harsh in using certain word, how would they behave, but it's a weird behavior. So these things can be easily analyzed if you have a look into the person. The person would be timid, lack of confidence, will not be in a position to express themselves. All these mean Saturn is getting connected with the first house. Okay. Now let's see how Saturn gets connected with the second house. Again, when I say Saturn, it's a retrograde Saturn, right? We all know second house stands for our family, income, speech, ability to express ourselves, facial expression. Most of the time when a retrograde Saturn gets connected with the second house, I have seen people having problem of stammering. This can happen knowingly, even unknowingly. When I say knowingly, people might know that, look, I have a problem to stammer. But sometimes what happens, people will have a tendency to take a long pause when they speak. It's again a kind of stammering. There will be intermittent modulation of voice. That's what it indicates. So whenever you have a retrograde Saturn getting connected with the second house, most people have this problem. Okay. They also have throat problems. Infections are very common. Again, Saturn is a karaka for pain. So they have throat aches, very common. They have a sore throat, very common. Again, they are very susceptible to cold items, cold drinks, cold stuff, eating ice creams in certain cases, because Saturn stands for cold. And a retrograde Saturn means he's going to create problems. So if you have a retrograde Saturn connected with the second house, you will have throat infection. You will have problems with regard to cold items. Consumption of cold items will be a problem. All right. Again, in certain cases, self-earned income will be very difficult. There again, last week I had a consultation where a person had come down to me for consultation, and in the process of consultation, I asked her, you seem to be wealthy, but somewhere you have not earned on your own. So this girl said, sir, I'm born in an affluent family, I have all my wealth, but yes, I always regret that I couldn't earn on my own. She had retrograde Saturn getting connected with the second house. Right? So these are some of the common problems that you will have. You will also have problems in accumulating anything of your own. Wealth, family life, love that you need from people, all these areas will have problems. Right? So these are some of the common problems that you will have when Saturn gets connected, retrograde Saturn gets connected with the second house. Now let's see what happens when retrograde Saturn again gets connected with the third house. See, third house is your hands, right? It also deals with your inclination, your courage. Okay. First of all, if Saturn gets connected with the third house, a person will not at all be courageous, or he will have intermittent courage. Kabhi kabhi dikha diya, kabhi kabhi nahi dikhaya. Right? So, and that too, if you have a retrograde Saturn getting connected with the third house, it will be too erratic. Sometimes you will have no confidence at all. Sometimes you will say, no, let me try to prove myself. Still you will not have the true confidence in your heart, but still you will try to be bossy, masculine wherever possible. But I have seen whenever retrograde Saturn gets connected with third house, a person will not have high inclination, will not have courage to deal with situations, especially with physical activities. Okay. They will also have a slow approach. See, third house is also for action sometimes. Not sometimes, it is also taken as inclination and to act. You have your hands to act, right? So I've seen these people, they will take their own time to understand the circumstances and then they will act. Okay. I've also seen people having shoulder aches or joint aches, finger aches, when retrograde Saturn gets connected with the third house. They normally complain, they have problems with regard to their muscles, their body, more than body, their hands, the shoulders. So these are some common problems that you see when retrograde Saturn gets connected with the third house. Most importantly, they will find it very difficult while they travel, especially short travels, intercity travels. They will always be the one who will miss the train, miss the bus, miss the common mode of transportation, public transportation that you will take. The punctuality will be a problem for them. Okay, so this is also one aspect which happens when retrograde Saturn gets connected with the third house. Now let's see what happens when retrograde Saturn gets connected with the fourth house. As we all know, fourth house stands for mother, fourth house stands for house, fourth house stands for vehicle. In fact, somebody asked me, sir, when you have all these aspects in fourth house, do you mean to say everything gets affected? Not really. See, fourth house alone will not give you these results. Whenever fourth house and certain planets get connected, it will give you the result. For example, all of us will have moon getting connected with the fourth house. Why? Because moon stands for mother. Okay. And fourth house also for mother. So moon should have a connection with the fourth house. There is no way that moon can never be connected with the fourth house. There will be some connection. How to see the connection? Of course, students who come to my class, I teach them. But fourth house will always have connection with moon. Okay, because we all take birth in our mother's womb. So without a mother, none of us can take birth, right? And moon stands for mother. Venus stands for spouse. It stands for girlfriend. But moon stands for mother, sister, sibling, female sibling, so on and so forth. So, similarly, when Venus gets connected with fourth house, then you own a car or a vehicle, So that's how we have to bifurcate, the houses along with the planets, so that, you get the exact answer. So as I said, the fourth house, Venus stands for vehicle, fourth house and moon stands for mother, fourth house plus fourth house plus Mars stands for property, right? So whenever retrograde Saturn gets connected with this house, and assuming if these planets are also getting connected, definitely you will have problems in these areas. Mother for sure, because everyone will have moon connecting with the fourth house, right? But if you're owning a vehicle, and retrograde Saturn gets connected with the fourth house, definitely the vehicle will have a problem. Similarly, you have a property, and if you're owning, and if retrograde Saturn is getting connected with the fourth house, again there would be a problem. So these areas, Saturn creates problem, right? So he likes to create problems in these areas. Of course, it is based on your karma. It is not that he indulges to do that. It's just based on the karma that you have. One very important point, if retrograde Saturn is getting connected with the fourth house, or even in general if Saturn is getting connected with the fourth house, I have seen people suffering from depression. Retrograde Saturn, 100%. Just close your eyes and say, yes, you should be a patient of depression. When, how, of course, I teach that in my class. It's not that you have a retrograde Saturn in the planet, you will be depressed throughout your life. There are certain time periods that needs to be reckoned, and then you come across. So retrograde planet, retrograde Saturn along with fourth house, almost it is concluded that you would be suffering from depression related problem. There is also some kind of a turmoil or some experiences that you had in the past that can also bother, especially if Saturn is getting connected with fourth house, because fourth house is also deals with moksha sthan, fourth, eighth and 12th deals with moksha. So some of your past karma gets accumulated even in the fourth house. So that's the reason whenever fourth house Saturn gets connected, it means there is a lot of karma that needs to be exhausted, and with time you slowly come out of it. Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Saturn gets connected with the fifth house. So fifth house stands for creativity. It is also dharma sthan, right? Yes, you will have belief in God, you will be religious, no doubt about that. But at the same time, if you have a retrograde Saturn getting connected with the fifth house, you will have lack of enjoyment in your life. Because Saturn will reduce the positivities of those houses. Add to that, he will further reduce the positivities when it gets retrograde in motion. So this is something which becomes very impactful if you have a retrograde Saturn getting connected with the fifth house. I have also seen delay in childbirth. See, fifth house alone is not childbirth. Eighth house is the actual house where you have childbirth, because it is the house of fetus. But fifth house is taken once there is a childbirth. Post delivery of the child, we take the fifth house. So there is always a problem with your children. Either there is a delay in conceiving a child, or even if you have a child, then there would be indifferences with the child. So these are some common problems that I've seen when Saturn gets connected, retrograde Saturn gets connected with the fifth house. Okay. Now comes the most detrimental stage of Saturn. This is one of the detrimental, I would not say this is the most. This is the connection of retrograde Saturn with the sixth house. See, please understand, sixth house is the house of rogue. When I say rogue in Hindi or in Sanskrit, it means the house of disease, ailments. Retrograde Saturn connecting sixth house means there has to be some problem with your health. Of course, it has to connect with other planets and the ascendant. But yes, whenever retrograde Saturn gets connected with the sixth house, I've seen most cases who suffer from cancer, most cases where you see the spreading of disease, like tuberculosis, cirrhosis, scarring of your lungs, scarring of your liver. Sixth house and retrograde Saturn has to play a role, right? I've also seen here they have constant problem with their pets, because sixth house stands for pets. Pets like owning a dog, cat, or some people have a tendency to own birds and keep them in the cage at home. Okay, I've seen most of the cases that they lose these pets at an unfortunate time. Either they die because of an accident, or there's a premature death. I've seen cases where pets die because of cancer. I had a student who used to learn from US. She had a dog, this was the second or the third dog, and every dog suffered because of cancer. And she always kept complaining to me, Girish, I lose my pets, I don't know what is the reason. I said, look, don't get me wrong, but do not own a pet. Because in your chart, you have Saturn, retrograde Saturn getting connected with the sixth house. So you will always have this problem. Just few months back, she lost the third pet that she was owning. It was a dog. And unfortunately, the dog suffered from cancer and she lost it. Right? So retrograde planet connecting with the sixth house, problem. There would be health problem, there would be problem with your pets. Right? Now let's see, and of course now the houses that it gets connected is more dangerous. That is retrograde Saturn getting connected with the seventh house. The seventh house is your opposite partner. It is also your spouse, right? Definite problems. I have seen a chart where the person is not yet married. The person is almost 46, 47. Couldn't get married because he has got a retrograde Saturn in the seventh house. Right? Every time he tries to date a female, date a partner, there is a rejection coming up, because the opposite person will never like you. Again, seventh house is the house which is exactly opposite. It will aspect the ascendant, right? I've seen people, when they have retrograde Saturn in the seventh house, they have a fear in the mind. They also have a lack of confidence in their face, so it doesn't appeal people. So one remedy which I give normally to people, and I will also share with you right now, is keep chanting. Chanting will ensure that there is glow in your face. If nothing, at least Gayatri mantra. You can chant any mantra, but Gayatri mantra, because it's the simplest mantra and it's universally known to people. Whether you have a retrograde planet or no, at least put a practice of chanting. Chanting is a very good karma that you accumulate. A lot of people have got a myth to say, Arey, karma means you have to do physical labor. Karma means you have to feed the poor. No, it is not always that. It is also what you do for yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, that is also a bad karma. Right? So chanting is a very good antidote to mitigate some of the bad karmas, because you have to put physical effort, you have to dedicate time, you have to devote time, right? So chanting is a good way to improve your karma. So as I said, retrograde Saturn getting connected with the seventh house will have problems. Okay, so just be careful. Okay, similarly, do not trust anybody who's older to you, especially if you have a retrograde Saturn in the seventh house. They are bound to deceive you in some way or the other, or you are bound to make mistake in understanding them. Okay, so it's better we take a control on not to trust anybody blindly, right? Again, now let's see what happens with the retrograde Saturn gets connected with the eighth house. Eighth house Saturn is again problematic. It can see, whenever sixth house and eighth house gets connected, it leads to serious ailments. Retrograde Saturn connecting sixth house, eighth house, even more dangerous. Again, eighth house Saturn connection, I have not seen them getting married. It prolongs to a very long time. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. How? Of course, when you learn astrology under me, I take case studies purely on this, and I connected with live examples, so that becomes easy for you to understand. But eighth house, retrograde Saturn, 99% no marriage, no delayed marriage, it is no marriage. Okay, of course other combinations should also be taken into account, but most cases that I've seen, retrograde Saturn connecting with the eighth house, they do not get married so easily. Okay, again they have problems with childbirth. Miscarriage is another problem. Okay, particularly for women. Again, 8th house retrograde Saturn means women will have problem in their monthly cycle. I've seen innumerable cases where women say, look, I have a chumming problem. I have to take medications to control the pain. Please understand, you have Saturn getting connected with the 8th house, because 8th house is the house where you have uterus. Saturn is blocking. You have to do some karma to ensure that this is reduced. Of course, we cannot erase this, but this can be reduced, right? Now, retrograde Saturn connecting with the 9th house. Okay. We all know 9th house is again a dharmastan. 9th house is also the house of father. It is also the house of fortune. You will have problems in all these areas. Extreme cases, I have seen people losing their father at a young age when they have a retrograde Saturn getting connected with the 9th house. Again, foreign travel is a big problem for them. I have seen cases where they used to plan to go abroad and it gets cancelled at the last moment for some reason or the other, or it gets rescheduled. At least, if not the extreme, at least it gets rescheduled, right? So retrograde Saturn, 9th house, big problem. Okay. Again, now let's see what happens when retrograde Saturn gets connected with the 10th house. 10th house is the house of karma. Retrograde Saturn connecting with 10th house means you will have serious troubles with your career. Okay, more so if Saturn dasha is operational, or if there is any other dasha which is getting operational and it is getting connected with Saturn, big time problem, very big time problem, right? So, if you have retrograde Saturn getting connected with the 10th house, please make sure you do not try to outsmart others. See, Karmastan is 10th house and Saturn is the accountant who keeps, the karma of whatever actions that you take. So, the moment he experiences that you're deviating from the regular path and you're trying to outsmart somebody, trying to, try to be, what do I say? I'm not saying you're trying to cheat somebody, but you're trying to outsmart somebody. And if it is not fitting as per the definition of Saturn, he's going to catch hold of you. I know somebody who took bribe recently. He was caught. Somebody just took a video snap and shared it to his seniors, and he lost his job. He had 10th house getting connected with Saturn. So these problems are all real. It's just that you need to know how to read a natal chart, right? Let's see what happens when retrograde Saturn gets connected with 11th house. See, normally 11th house is not a bad house. Again, if there is any retrograde planet getting connected with the 11th house, it's not going to create a serious problem. There can be delays in getting your desire, that's it, okay? Except if it is a Badak Stan. So, if you have an ascendant or a moon sign which is Aries, Libra or Capricorn, your 11th house becomes your Badak Stan. Then it is dangerous, otherwise it is not, okay? Of course, we can't teach everything in a video. Those who learn astrology under me, to them I make this point very clear, okay? Last and the foremost, retrograde Saturn connecting with 12th house, okay? See, normally when Saturn gets connected with 12th house, it is good for few areas. Why? Because you get a good sleep. And Saturn is a little lazy planet, so you get a good sleep most of the time. It disturbs in certain cases. That means you can be easily awakened, with the slightest, noise or with slightest calling of you. You can be awakened. But otherwise, a Saturn connecting with 12th house is not that bad. Again, a Saturn connecting with 12th house will make you a miser, kanjus, what we say in Hindi, right? So again, being kanjus is not bad. It's just that you're calculative when it comes to your money spends. So, but a retrograde Saturn connecting with 12th house will have serious problems. Okay, why serious problems? I won't say serious as such, but there will be areas where you will be impulsive. Okay, like for example, you'll be in two minds before you spend the money. Okay, you will spend money at times and then you will say, no, why did I spend this money? Okay. Similarly, you will have relocation problems. I've seen cases where they relocate and they have problems in settling down in the new place. So these are some of the problems that you see when retrograde Saturn gets connected with the 12th house. Okay. I hope this video was interesting and it gave you some insights. Again, for those audience who view my channel and who have given me comments in the past, I would humbly request, if you liked it, please leave your comments on the description box below, and also go through the other videos that I've uploaded. in case if you're new to this channel and you do not know where to go, I would request you to go through the series channel on retrograde planets. So that will give you an understanding as to what is the background about retrograde planet, how should you read it, and with the individual planet, how is it going to impact. Okay. Furthermore, in case if you want to take a consultation, you have my contact details on the website. Please drop me a WhatsApp message seeking an appointment, and then you can go abroad. You can take it ahead. Okay. Again, if anybody is interested to learn astrology, you can again get in touch with me. The new batch is about to start. There is a small batch that I've just started, especially for people who are overseas. But for those who are in India who want to learn astrology under me, you can definitely get in touch with me. And once again, I would request you to like, subscribe my channel, and also spread this channel to other people who are interested to know about astrology.